What happens when law, business, and life collide? Each week on Lead Counsel, your host Tom Tona will take a deep dive into topics related to the law, the business of law, and life. There will be insightful discussions with industry insiders, experts, and thought leaders making significant contributions and meaningful differences in their fields of expertise. Tom is the founder and managing attorney at TonaLaw. He has been a practicing attorney since 1994 and the leader of TonaLaw since it opened in 2001. The goal of this podcast is to provide you with free information on law and the business of law, and to give you actionable tools related to each of these areas. Now, here's Tom.
Welcome to the Lead Counsel Podcast. It's your host, Tom Tona. I'm here with Juliet. Jules, what's going on?
Hello, everybody. Welcome back.
So today is going to be a short and sweet episode on the essentials of no-fault insurance for my automobile accident clients in New York State. So first thing we're going to talk about is what is the role of no-fault insurance? What is it and how it pertains to motor vehicle accidents in New York State? And then, the top action steps that clients would need to follow if they're in an automobile accident in New York State. Right? So first, what is no-fault insurance? So in New York, in every automobile policy, there's a coverage called personal injury protection insurance. And the layman's term or the informal name for it is no-fault insurance. And essentially it's this. In New York State, every automobile policy has to carry a minimum of $50,000 in personal injury protection, also known as no-fault insurance. And it's called no-fault insurance because it applies in every case, regardless of who caused the accident or who's at fault. Hence, no-fault insurance, right? That's the name of it. And basically what it is it covers basic economic loss up to $50,000. Essentially, it's for primarily medical treatment, to cover all medical treatment for injuries that you sustain in an auto accident, and lost wages. Most of the clients that contact our office, one of their biggest concerns is, how do I get my lost wages paid? So there's certain things that have to be done immediately after an accident because it's very time sensitive, and the carriers, through years of lobbying, have really tightened up timeframes that could impact, a person's ability to get no-fault insurance in place. So no-fault insurance is designed to cover medical expenses and lost income when you're injured in an accident, regardless of fault. That's what people need to understand. Okay, there are 10 steps. 1, the no-fault application. It has to be filled out within 30 days, signed, and sent to the insurance company, your auto insurance company, right? For the carrier that insures your vehicle, not the other person's vehicle. They will be paying your medical bills. They will be paying your lost wages. They will be paying other incidental basic economic loss that's covered under the statute.
And this 30-day period is not to be missed because...
It's not to be missed. Look, we have people call us up all the time after, and there are justifications you can make at arbitration as far as late filing, right? What is the reasonable excuse for late filing? That being said, hard and fast, you should file a no-fault application right away. Get a no-fault claim number assigned and file a written application. So when you call up immediately after an accident, within 24 hours after an auto accident in New York, you call up your insurance carrier, you report the accident. I was in an accident, I was hurt, I'm making a claim. I need a no-fault file set up. They will give you a no-fault claim number in that call, and then they will mail you the no-fault application. Fill it out and sign it and mail it back. And I always tell people, mail it back. I like to have record proof of mailing, so you always want to send it in certified mail, return receipt if you can. So the next step, tell your healthcare providers that you are there under no-fault insurance and that the injuries were related to an accident that you're seeing them for, right? Most front-end paperwork when you go to a medical provider, whether it's an emergency room, whether it's an orthopedic, whether it's a chiropractor, they always ask the question, is this a work-related accident? Are you here today because of injuries sustained in an automobile accident? And what they're trying to get at is are you there for workers' compensation insurance? treatment, or are you there with insurance under no-fault insurance, right? Because they understand that they have to then bill under no-fault insurance or workers' comp. If you're in an automobile accident that occurred while you were at work, then you may have both, right? So wherever you file first is going to be covering the costs of your treatment and or your lost wages. So if you file first with comp will be picking it up primary, right? That being said, comp may have a lien. They may not have a lien. Depends. It's a whole nother conversation. But you can have both, and you should file both, right? Immediately, 24 hours after that accident, you should file with workers' comp and with no fault. That's what we do for our clients when they sign up with us, right? We make sure that they're getting as much coverage as possible. We can sort out later who's going to be primary, who's not, right? So step number 2 is make sure any provider, healthcare providers you go to, you're telling them, hey, I was in an auto accident. I have no fault insurance. Here's my provider. Here's my claim number, right? The third thing that you have to remember is that all bills have to be submitted to the no-fault carrier within 45 days. Lost wage claims must be submitted within 90 days. These are hard and fast timelines set up by the statute. So you have to make sure that you're on top of these submissions or they will be deemed late. It doesn't mean you can't submit them, but they will be deemed late. And then you have the burden of giving a reasonable excuse as to why they should be paying.
And you always run the risk of them getting denied and not getting paid.
Correct. Then you're leaving it up to, is an arbitrator going to overturn it? It's very rare for a carrier to just voluntarily overturn something when they have the leverage of not paying you. That's the business they're in. They don't want to pay you. Okay? They don't want to pay you. They don't want to pay you medical bills. Their job is to hold on to premiums. So the fourth no-fault rule that people need to know about is necessary expenses, including travel expenses to and from doctor's offices, expenses that you pay out of pocket for household help, all must be submitted within 45 days. Again, that 45-day rule, right? The fifth rule that people need to know that comes into play as far as with no-fault insurance. Private health insurance will not play a role. We will always ask for it at the beginning of a case. Your medical officers will always ask for it. It's just another layer of insurance coverage, okay? But it won't come into play unless and until no fault is exhausted. So make sure that you're talking to your treating physician and telling them that you're covered by no fault, but that you have this other layer of insurance there if you have it, right? And then the next step is ask your doctors what to expect at the no-fault exam. They know what we know about no-fault exams. So let's just discuss these for a second. The insurance carriers use a cute terminology called independent medical exams, which I hate, right?
Because they're not independent.
They're not independent, right? They are not independent. Here's why they're not independent. The insurance companies are paying these doctors, which is why so many of those exams result in denials. So I call them PMEs, paid medical exams, because let's call it what it is, or DMEs, defense medical exams, right? The doctor you're going to at the behest of the insurance company to see if you still need treatment has a financial incentive to deny your claims. And you could just Google, insurance independent medical exam fraud or defense medical exam fraud. There's YouTube channels about all the shady stuff that some of these doctors out there that work for the carriers are doing. Like they'll just rubber stamp a denial without even examining you. So ask your doctors what to expect at the no-fault exam, your treating doctors, because they're there to treat you. They're there to see you make medical improvement, right? That's their agenda. That's it. Let's talk about a little further. Rule number 7, while we're talking about the medical exams. Just be cautious. These doctors are paid by the insurance company. They work for the insurance company. They are not your friend. They don't care about you. They are your adversary. The term independent medical exam is horseshit. Treat the examining doctor when you're going for these quote unquote paid medical exams or defense medical exams. Treat them as your adversary because they are. at the no-fault exam, the next rule, rule number 8, at the no-fault exam, say very little, answer yes, no, I don't know, I don't remember. Time the exam, right? Make written notes on what happens or does not happen at the exam, everything that the doctor tells you, right? And what we're talking about here is those defense medical exams.
And it's
right?
important to not minimize your injuries or how you've been affected by them at all. I think a lot of people, their automatic reaction is to be like, oh, I'm fine, but just do not minimize your injuries.
Right, exactly. And part of the rules that we tell people is kind of the same rules for depositions, right? Tell the truth, don't minimize anything, and don't exaggerate anything, right? You don't want anybody accusing you of what's called malingering, which is, exaggerating or falsifying complaints. That's the time to tell the truth about how hurt you are, how the accident's impacted your life. So number 9, just remember the general purpose of the no-fault exam purportedly is to examine if you still need treatment and if they should continue paying for said treatment. But just understand that the underlying purpose that insurance companies are in business is to collect premiums and minimize payout of claims, right? So you just have to keep that in mind. So the last thing, if your no-fault bills are being denied or you're cut off from no-fault benefits, but your primary doctors that are treating you are saying, look, you still need treatment. You're still injured. You're not resolved and you're still symptomatic. And the test I use with clients is when I'm on the phone with them, I say, listen, it's a simple are you still hurt? Yeah, I have headaches when I'm sleeping. I can't sleep anymore. My relationship with my wife is being impacted. If you're still symptomatic, it's your doctors that determine whether or not you should keep treating. So you keep treating for as long as you and your treating doctors determine is medically necessary, right? It is the obligation of your treating doctors to submit the bills to the insurance company. And if those bills are being denied, they can still treat you and they can then dispute the denials after the fact. So they can arbitrate those bills. Our office has an entirely separate silo set up to represent healthcare providers and our personal injury clients in their first-party benefit claim denials, right? So, Jules, you got any questions about no-fault before we can this episode?
Yeah, I actually do have a question. So say you were in an accident and you're treating under no-fault.
Car accident.
And in a car accident, and you're treating under the $50,000 worth of no-fault insurance that you have available to you, and you get in another car accident, is that a new $50,000?
Yes. Yes. So what has to happen, and a lot of law firms deal with this, right? Where somebody has an accident on, let's just pick a date, January 1st. Then they have another accident April 1st. So it's up to, so the answer is yes to your question. Within 24 hours of the second accident, you set up a separate no-fault claim. Okay. With your insurance carrier and a separate number. Okay. It's then up to your doctors to distinguish the injuries from the first accident to the second accident. So even if you injured the same body parts, if it's what's called an exacerbation or a worsening of your prior injuries or even existing injuries, right, that existed before the first accident, those are still compensable injuries under the statute, potentially under the statute for serious injury in New York. But also, yes, you get separate treatment for those, and they have to distinguish in their medical records all of the different injuries and their causes, right? Is it the first accident? Was it a work-related accident from 20 years ago that's been exacerbated? That type of stuff. So that's an excellent question because we do get it a lot. And what people have to be dialoguing with their doctors, because not all providers are very diligent with this, is I need you to be clearly delineating when you're billing. It doesn't just go, oh, we exhausted the first policy, they cut us off, you're going to put everything under the second. That's improper billing practices, right? So you have to be talking to your doctors and advocating for yourself, like, hey, you separate out the root causes of my injuries. Sometimes it's going to be completely separate body parts, right? Accident 1 could be back and neck. Accident 2 could be a fracture of the foot. That's easy to distinguish. Where it gets a lot more challenging for the providers is where it's the same body parts involved. And they have to figure out how to best handle that. But that's up to your medical providers.
Yeah. Okay.
Got any other questions?
If you're a motorcycle rider, do you have no-fault insurance?
So that's a little bonus tip, right? So New York does not provide for no-fault insurance statutorily for motorcycles, which is horrific, right? But I think it's a public policy thing because the injuries are typically so severe in motorcycle accidents. And I hate to say this because I know you're a biker and I know that your significant other is a biker, but you can purchase additional coverage through certain carriers. My advice to anybody that rides a motorcycle is always purchase as much coverage as possible. So that's really the essential key to understanding no-fault insurance for our automobile accident clients and how it relates to their personal injury cases. And I would tell everybody listening to this, look, I know it's a short episode, but it's kind of packed with a bunch of nuggets. And the reason that we do this is we do send out, form emails with regard to the same information, but not a lot of people want to read that information. And I don't blame them. It's boring. So they can listen to this, in the car, on the exercise bike, at physical therapy while you're treating, and it will shed some light. But basically, don't use your health insurance. Don't use any other form of insurance if you're in an auto accident other than potentially workers' comp insurance. Don't use any other insurance other than no-fault insurance. I would ask anybody listening to this, share this with anybody who's been injured in an accident in New York, in a car accident. And, if you think that they need help understanding what no-fault is and how it applies to them, feel free to share this. This podcast is distributed anywhere that you can find podcasts. So, click through and follow us, subscribe, and leave us a 5-star review if you found value in the podcast.
Thank you, everybody.
Peace.